Hi pals, it is me, Artie, and I'm not gonna lie, my replacement phone either has a broken microphone or an extremely dirty microphone. I filmed 2 videos yesterday, including this one, and it was over an hour of filming. I am too tired and don't have enough time to refilm either of those videos and edit them as well for this week. So at the very least, this video is going to have a voiceover instead. I feel like this is the easiest one to just voice over anyway, because it's just me kind of just talking about how I had a pretty shitty experience recently with my local hospital, and they took down their mask mandates, mask requirements of everybody, staff, patients, medical professionals, etc. I do at least think I have found what the issue was. When it comes to my video recording, camera, audio, I don't know how I'm supposed to have found this, but apparently I needed to toggle off record stereo sound, because the only issue I was having was with recording videos and the audio of videos being wonky. So hopefully I can re-record my other video another day, but this is what you're getting this week. So I'm going to do my best to try and recount and remember what I said in this video. It's very frustrating, really. Basically I had an appointment last Thursday, with rheumatology. One of my health conditions is the Takayasu's arteritis, which is a vasculitis that I have to be on immunosuppressants for, because it's an autoimmune disease that basically my immune system just is over responsive and attacks body tissue. So to try and stop it doing that, you have to suppress the immune system. I am not and will never be the only patient, even in that department alone, in this hospital under rheumatology, with these issues. It's quite common for lots of different conditions that are monitored and cared for by rheumatology are on immunosuppressant medication. I'd already known that they had dropped the masking mandates because my gran had been at the same hospital earlier in the week for her own appointment. When we got there, nobody was wearing masks. Throughout my entire visit, I maybe saw a handful of people wearing masks. There were a couple of other patients wearing masks, but they were together, much like how I arrived with my mum and we were both wearing masks even though I was the patient. My mum was not there for an appointment. The frustration really of turning up to just see that actually all the walls were still all the walls and all the windows were still plastered with posters and info forms and stuff like that still telling you to mask, still telling you to distance and how to wash your hands, when to wash your hands, hand sanitizing, etc., etc. There was nothing up on the walls to say that actually they didn't have to mask anymore, and much of these buildings don't have windows at all or windows that can open. A lot of the times you are in small spaces with other people who are not wearing masks and no ventilation. As I entered, I went to use the hand sanitizer and it was empty, so they're not even keeping all of their hand sanitizers full anymore or making sure that they aren't just leaving like empty hand sanitizer bottles around. They still have the big like plexiglass or plastic screens up around reception desks, so I will give them a little bit of leeway behind the plexiglass because at least there's something between us. But unfortunately everywhere else it was pretty much just do whatever you like. I sat and waited in the waiting area and just continue to see more and more patients entering or leaving unmasked, as well as staff members and specifically like medical members of staff as well. I was seeing consultants not wearing masks and stuff, calling their patients in, and it was really off-putting and really kept me on edge. I was already on edge because if you are new, I've been having issues when it comes to trying to access care for a little while, so I was already anxious about this appointment, but seeing everybody walking around unmasked made that a lot worse. I was also noticing a lot of people who weren't wearing masks were like coughing and spluttering everywhere. I saw someone cough like just directly into her hand, who, you know, when you cough into your hand, that means that wherever you put your hand, you're leaving like germs and viruses. And lots of people before the pandemic did not think about this. And that's what led and does lead to a lot of these contamination issues and lots of infections generally, is because people don't think of what they have done with their hands and where they're putting their hands, and pick up germs and viruses that cause sickness. So she could have gotten up, held on to the arm of the chair, maybe had to steady herself on like the wall or something, had to touch the chair that she was sitting in. She, like, if she was seeing the same doctor as me, she could have sat in the same chair as me and put her hands all over the chair. You know, that's sort of the thing that comes to mind when it comes to nobody having to wear masks or really think about this sort of thing anymore. It's very tiring and frustrating for me because my hospital was one of the last few hospitals, including my GP practice as well. They were the last spaces really that I'd heard about that hadn't dropped the masks being compulsory to wear for everybody, where a lot of other hospitals, GP practices, etc. around the UK have been dropping those mandates. So yeah, like I know this isn't new and I know it's been happening to a lot of people, but I was really still remaining hopeful that maybe my local medical centres were going to be different or going to continue masking for longer. But yeah, like back onto the coughing thing, like if you're wearing a mask and you need to cough, like you can just cough in the mask and it's not going to be spread everywhere by your hand or by the air. So that's something that does really frustrate me, especially like I do understand that it can be difficult to cancel appointments because you've picked up a cold or a virus of some kind, because especially at the moment wait lists are very, very long. You don't really want to give up those appointments, I get it, but if you're turning up not wearing a mask, you can make a lot of other people really, really sick. I was then called over by I think a healthcare assistant because I have to get my obs done, which pretty much is just getting my blood pressure tested in both of my arms. The room that this is done in is a windowless, tiny cupboard of a room, and the healthcare assistant was not wearing a mask and did not ask me, when seeing me wearing a mask, if I would prefer her to wear one. So I did ask her if she would put one on, and she was like, oh, okay, but we don't have to wear them anymore. And like, that was really, really frustrating. I really, really did not appreciate that being the initial response, because what does she expect me to say? What am I expected to say to, we don't have to wear them anymore, actually? Oh, my bad. Never mind. Haha. I've changed my mind. It's fine, actually, you know? Spread your possible germs all over me. It's fine. Just joking. Haha. Oh, really? Oh, I guess if you don't have to wear them, then don't bother. It's fine. Even though I just asked you. Yeah, so it is really confronting and difficult in these moments because we, as immunocompromised people, have been dealing with this issue for quite a while outside of medical settings and have been getting it increasingly more in medical settings, having to decide between the risks of being firm in our boundaries of mask wearing and the possible risks of what might happen if you do stay firm in those requests. I feel like I shouldn't have to tell them that I'm on 3 immunosuppressive medications for them to go, oh, okay, yes, that's fine, and not insinuate that they shouldn't have to wear masks anymore. I feel like that is not a response that you should be giving at all as a healthcare worker in any capacity. If someone has asked you to wear a mask before getting too close, really your response should be, okay, let me do that. Then as well, she didn't have access to a mask nearby. She had to go somewhere else entirely to go and get a mask to wear. And in the process of doing that, walked past me very closely 3 times. So we did my blood pressure in both my arms. And, slightly off topic, but surprisingly, actually, we got readings in both of my arms, and they were semi-similar in readings, which is really not very common. They were not too different. They're usually quite a bit different, but I think being at the hospital with all of my concerns and anxieties already, my normal blood pressure was already high, higher than normal by about maybe 20 points or so. So she then put us in a separate hallway with less people waiting in it, at least. Like, she had some kind of forethought to think about doing that, even though she didn't have the thought of, like, oh, what if the consultant can't see you, or if you can't hear the consultant when you're called. So we were sat along the x-ray hallway. Unfortunately, it seems like the other people I mentioned who were wearing masks still had to wait in the other hallway, even though I'm pretty sure they were both there for x-ray. So I don't know why they weren't allowed to come sit in there with us. They were both wearing masks. It was very strange. I saw a few staff in that area as well. One man walked out wearing a mask, and then when he came back, he was wearing it around his neck like a fun, trendy choker. One member of staff came to speak to us about wearing a mask to see if we were there for x-ray, which is fine. Would have preferred if she put on a mask first, but we get why she came to ask, why would we sat there otherwise? And then another member of staff came to ask again. I'm not really sure why, but another member of staff did, but she either was already wearing a mask or had just put one on. She was kind of like adjusting the elastic around her ears, which is why I say she might have just put it on, or she may have just been adjusting it, because I also find them really uncomfortable, especially wearing them for longer periods of time. She came around to ask, but I did see her later still wearing the mask, so I think that she just was continuing to wear the mask just all day at work. Eventually, we were called back in to see my consultant and have my consultation with the rheumatologist. She was wearing a mask, which I was pleased about, because the things that she said to me gave me the impression that she was very strict with masking anyway, because of people in her life who also need to be protected from COVID. So I was pleased to at least see that. And thankfully, as well, in this appointment, my blood test results seem to be okay. So I have also avoided getting another PET scan for another year, which is good. I really didn't feel mentally well enough to do that anyway. But also, something I did say to her anyway, after she said she didn't think she would put me through for one this time, was that I had wanted to have more time for all the stuff with my Capture to sort of settle, really, because we are really still at the very early stages of reworking how all of that's going to go and how that's going to work for me, and testing regularly to see my liver function and all that sort of thing. So yeah, for now I can at least kind of like breathe a bit more easily. I don't have to go back for another 5 months, and can kind of just focus on working with the IBD pharmacy team with my mercaptopurine and possibly the cotrimoxazole and stuff like that. Towards the end of my appointment, before we left, the same healthcare assistant from earlier came in without a mask on, which was really frustrating, because it's just like, I literally just had this conversation with you, and I even disclosed some more details about my health condition that I was there for to discuss with this rheumatologist. And I was also frustrated that my rheumatologist didn't really bat an eyelid and just looked at her and talked to her like she was wearing a mask, or like there was no issue. And it was just very annoying that that happened, because I really think that they should have in mind and put patients who are immunocompromised first in this situation. I just don't really understand the cognitive disconnect when it comes to this sort of thing. Like, personally, my bare minimums when it comes to masking are healthcare, buildings, locations, services, public transport, busy public spaces or events, like spaces where you can see that there is no ventilation, no possible way of ventilating that space as well, and how many people are in the room and who is in the room. If the people in the room are immunocompromised people who probably have an issue with people not wearing masks, then maybe you should be considering to wear a mask, because it is just generally a basic human decency, basic human respect to give disabled and immunocompromised people some safety in public spaces. Since recording this video, actually, I did contact my hospital's PAL service to explain what happened and ask for more clarity. It has been confirmed to me that I am well within my rights, and so should everybody in the UK, but it's always a good idea to contact your local hospitals or whatever's teams for clarification on this matter. But my local space has confirmed that I'm well within my rights to request staff to wear a mask if they are treating me or whatever, because I come under the immunocompromised section of people. They sent me the whole sort of new policy section of like when masks are required and when they're not required. It does say staff have their own personal choice of wearing a mask or not in the settings that it's not required. But basically, they don't have to wear a mask whilst caring for patients with normal immunity and no respiratory symptoms. So I feel like that's one of the things that does show that they should wear a mask when around patients who don't have normal immunity. And the email does say that if a staff member refuses, which should not happen unless for a clinical reason, so if that member of staff is like an exempt person, which I do understand, then I should be allowed to speak to another member of staff who can wear a mask to continue treatment. Yeah, generally they should not be able to say no. That's something I shared with the PALS team, is that I am concerned of what if we don't have to wear them anymore, but okay, turns into just straight up no. So that was helpful for me to access that information from them directly. And like I said, I do think it's important to contact your local hospitals, GP services, etc. to get their specific clarification on these things, particularly if you are concerned that something like that will happen, so you can explain that actually they are going against their own hospital policy, etc. I do also want to say, before I get to sort of my closing credits of this video, that my main hope for this video is, one, educating immunocompromised people who are going to be facing these situations or already have been facing these situations, and then the other one is just encouraging people to wear masks and be more careful with their hygiene and what they're doing in public spaces more often. I see a lot of all or nothing conversation, all or nothing talk about wearing masks. I don't think that's helpful, and as someone who does deal with a lot of sensory issues when it comes to wearing masks, and I know there are people who are exempt but can possibly wear masks for smaller periods of time, I do think it's important to just be more aware and to wear masks more often, even if it is not 100%, even if you do take off your mask in the middle of an event but put it back on a bit later. Wearing no mask at all doesn't help anything, but part-time wearing a mask does limit exposure to you and to people around you. It's, even wearing masks full-time is not perfect for everybody, but wearing masks when you can, then you are doing something to help the people around you and help to make the space a better place. I think a lot of people feel very uncomfortable wearing masks now because nobody is wearing masks, and it can be kind of scary to just be out there in the world, that you don't know what's going to happen when you leave your door. It can be quite a scary place to be in when you are doing things that are against the mainstream accepted vibe. Like, masks have become out of mainstream and aren't really socially acceptable anymore. It's weird to say it, but that's kind of what I've noticed and how I feel as I look at what's been going on. So I just want to encourage people to wear masks more often. If you have stopped wearing a mask, please start wearing a mask. I gave a few basic spaces where I feel like that is the bare minimum to start. Please start wearing your mask more often. Please start being careful with what you're doing with your hands if you've got a cold, where you're coughing, just take that moment to think about it a little bit more. I would also like to take this moment to just confirm that if the comment section gets weird, if it gets nasty, if it gets abusive or ableist, I will block everyone who is making these comments. I'll report all the comments, and I will possibly even shut down my comment section of this video. I am not taking feedback. That's just it. I'm not taking feedback on human rights. Thanks, XOXO Gossip Girl. I have no interest in debating my human rights. I have to do that enough in other spaces for other reasons. I'm not doing that here on my own channel, on my own video, where I'm venting about something that has upset me and bothered and concerned me quite a lot about my own care. I also know that I'm not the only person who feels this way, so that's why I also wanted to put this here, is I would like to add my voice to that too. And that as long as the comment section doesn't get weird, the comment section is a safe space for other people like me to vent that frustration. So if that's something that would be beneficial to you, please feel free to vent in the comments. I would also be interested in hearing about if there has been any kind of way of changing how this goes or how this works in hospitals and or GP settings, because I do feel like they have just kind of completely gotten rid of mask mandates without a whole lot of nuance about or around disabled / immunocompromised people. Even though, like I said, the policy that I've been sent by PALS does have some more nuance around it, it doesn't seem like many staff members have had the memo, and I really believe they should be asking members of staff, like, they should be asking the patients who turn up wearing a mask if they would like the staff member to also wear a mask. Like, that should be the very first thing that they do or think is, should I put a mask on for this person? Should I be doing something to make them more comfortable in this already very uncomfortable setting? They shouldn't have to be they shouldn't have to be prompted by the patients. And especially because that can be a very uncomfortable and sometimes even dangerous situation to be in as a sick person in a hospital, is asking a member of staff to do something to protect you. Funnily enough, a lot of medical staff are not so lenient or flexible. I think that was everything I said in the original video. I really can't remember. I'm struggling to remember to do this because I'm not in the flow of it, and it just feels weird, you know? Like, I voice over very different kinds of videos. It just doesn't comprehend right in my brain. But yeah, hopefully I've said everything I said in the previous one. Like the video, leave a comment, subscribe to the channel if you want to see more of me. I do talk about disability a lot on here. And hopefully I'll be able to record or re-record my other video for you for next week. Yeah, you know, gotta adapt when you're sick and disabled, and this is the best I can supply this week. There would be no possible way of re-recording and fully editing that whole video with the kind of energy I have at the moment. Please wear a mask when you go places. It is community care. There are a lot of smaller grassroots mutual aid kinds of groups who can help provide tests and masks and things like that for events and clubs. There's a few in Brighton that I know of, and there should be more generally around the UK and around the world. So I definitely recommend you look into those sorts of things if you would like to try and make your spaces safer for immunocompromised people and not continue the isolation that many of us have to deal with. And with that, I will see you next week. Bye.